Hello, it's Sally Harris here, all the way from Australia, and I'm the author of Diary of a Penguin Napper. And over these 2 weeks, I'm doing a blog tour to introduce some more people to my book. And while I've been on tour, I've done a lot of interviews and I've done a lot of guest posts. And so today I thought we'd do something different and that I would do a reading from the book for you. So the story of Diary of a Penguin Napper begins when 11-and-a-half-year-old Marty's mother finds a penguin hidden in the spare bathroom of their house, and all of his best laid plans suddenly come crashing down when his mother decides it's time to call the police, who are affectionately nicknamed Fat and Skinny. And when they arrive at Marty's house, he's forced to explain how this unlikely situation came to be. And so using his diary, or as he prefers to call it, much more manly, his record book, he gives us a recount that begins from a few weeks earlier, prior to the date, and he explains about how all his dreams appear to have come true when he's paired up with the most beautiful girl in Year 7 and probably the world, according to Marty, Jessica, and he's paired up with her for the overnight science excursion, and he sees this as his big chance to really impress her. And the only problem is, for Marty, is that he can't afford to go on the overnight science trip, or rather he can't afford to go on it yet. With the help of his best mate, Turds, they decide that the way they're going to get Marty on the trip is to raise the money themselves. And so the section I'd like to read for you today is their very first money-making scheme, and it involves doing odd jobs for the old lady that lives next door to Marty. So this is chapter 8. Finally, we get our first odd job call. It's old Mrs. Bird from next door, the one that has all the poodles. "I've just got a few small jobs that need doing," she says on the phone in an old lady voice. Mrs. Bird has to be about 100 years old, and her house is full of doilies, knitted coat hanger covers, and dried flower arrangements that must be nearly as old as she is. "Marty, that's not very nice." Mum doesn't sound very impressed with my description of our neighbour for Fat and Skinny, even if it is true. Skinny is still noting down every word I say. Well, almost every word. She has just written down odd jobs for old Bird. I guess she's getting the main points anyway. I decide to ignore Mum's complaints and continue from where I was up to. After school, Turds and I ring Mrs. Bird's doorbell, and after what seems like an eternity, she opens the door. Now, despite being really, really old, Mrs. Bird is still fairly sprightly for her age. Even though she is wearing carpet slippers and a matching tartan shirt and blouse, she still seems to be able to spring around the house with surprising agility. She gives us each one stale digestive biscuit and a glass of peach cordial before giving us her list of jobs to do. There must be around 15 different jobs on the list, and for the next 2.5 hours, Turds and I rake, mow, wash, iron, fold, stir, and scrub until our hands are blistered. Old Mrs. Bird stands over us like an ogre, pointing out all the bits we've missed or done wrong. She even makes us feed the poodles. I didn't think she'd let me near the poodles after the haircut I gave them, although their fur seems to have largely grown back now. At the end of it all, we look at her hopefully. How much money could we have made in an afternoon? We'd done a lot of jobs, and it felt like we were there for absolutely ages. Old Mrs. Bird reaches into her bag and pulls out her purse. It appears to be made from the same carpet print as her slippers. As she opens a clasp, you can almost smell the tension in the air as Turds and I lean forward with anticipation of the windfall to come. She reaches in with her bony hand and pulls out a handful of coins. Notes would have been better, but money is money and I'm not complaining. From the handful of coins in her hand, she carefully selects 2 coins and hands one to me and the other to Turds. "Thank you, boys," she says, waving her hand to dismiss us. "You weren't completely hopeless. I'll probably call on you again at some point." And before we know it, we're out on the doorstep and the door is closed. Turds looks down at the coin in his hand. $2? He looks at it in disbelief. "All that work for $2? I open my palm and see that I too have a measly $2 coin sitting on my hand. "What a mean old..." Turds uses a pretty rude word that I don't want to say in front of Mum. At least she gave us $2 each, I say, trying to look on the positive side. Yeah, and at this rate, you'll have all the money you need for the trip by the time you graduate from high school, replies Turds as we walk down Mrs. Bird's driveway and back to my house. On his way, Turds kicks one of Mrs. Bird's pansies in the garden bed by the letterbox with the toe of his school shoe, and it sails out of the ground and lands, roots and all, in the middle of the street where one of our neighbours backs over it. I think he would have kicked out more until I pointed out that we were the ones who had just spent 45 minutes planting them. And that's chapter 8 for you. If you'd like to read the first chapter, it's currently available over at my website. You can go and download it for free. And if you would like to get yourself a copy of Diary of a Penguin Napper, we have one here on We Do Write to give away, which is very exciting. Otherwise, you can also get them over at Amazon and for download at Smashwords. If you have any further questions, please feel free to leave a comment on this blog, and I hope you enjoyed the reading of Diary of a Penguin Napper.